Welcome to a new edition of the Neon Jazz interview series with Jazz Trumpeter Bijon Watson. This cat grew up in the Boston area and has lately been getting some recognition from his time in the award-winning film La La Land. He's been at this jazz gig for some time and got his formal training at the New England Conservatory of Music and the University of Southern California. He was a part of the Disney All-American College Band and has performed with the likes of Michael Buble, Harry Connick Jr., Diana Krall, Michael Jackson, Arturo Sandoval, John Pizzarelli, Dianne Reeves, and so many others, and he has appeared on American Idol, The Tonight Show with Leno, and Dancing with the Stars. He is a very busy and talented musician with much to talk about. So get to know him and dig this interview, my friends.
Bijon, thank you for taking some time out today. I appreciate it.
My pleasure. Thanks for asking.
Absolutely. So I'm going to go ahead and dive in here. I think it goes without saying that you've been extraordinarily busy for very obvious reasons lately. So I'm going to start things off with asking you, what has been going on with you lately?
I just returned from performing at the Grammy weekend at the Grammy official after party with the John DeVersa Progressive Big Band. Actually, the band was nominated for a Grammy in the large jazz ensemble category. So we played at and I performed on that album, so I'm pretty excited about that. And it was called Kaleidoscope Eyes, the music of the Beatles. So we played at the after party. We did not win, but it's still a treat to be nominated. And, then I stepped back to Boston, and I'm heading to the Lionel Hampton Jazz Festival in Idaho next weekend. Going to be playing there as a guest artist and clinician, and head to Newport Beach to play with Clayton Hamilton Jazz Orchestra at the Newport Beach Jazz Party, and do some clinics and master classes while I'm down in Orange County, California. So that's the short-term stuff that's going on. So
talk to me about your life. Where were you born and raised?
I was born in Boston, Massachusetts, and grew up in a suburb, Sharon, Massachusetts, which is about a half hour outside of Boston. So I grew up and went to high school there. And during that time, I attended the New England Conservatory Extension Division, their preparatory school there. So that was great. That was in my middle school and high school years before I came out to California to go to USC.
You've been classically trained since you were 8 years old. So
Yep. Mm-hmm.
How did you get into music, and has it always been just a fit for you? Does music always make sense?
Yeah, my grandfather, Chester King, was a professional bassist, and he played tuba as well. And he was actually worked in the Quincy shipyards. He was a master welder and a jewelry craftsman and a musician. So a lot of my musical genetics come from him. And so it was pretty much encouraged in my household to play the trumpet. To be a musician. I actually wanted to play drums, was my instrument I really wanted to play. But my parents kind of vetoed that, and trumpet was my second choice. So I had a great elementary school program in Sharon, Massachusetts, and Mr. Baker was my elementary school teacher and got me going. That pretty much paved the way for me to get involved in the music scene here in Boston.
So what about albums when you were growing up? What jazz albums did you listen to that really kind of got your brain swirling around the jazz world?
Well, my parents were huge fans of the Jazz Crusaders, a lot of Joe Sample, Hubert Laws, a lot of the soul and R&B at the time, a lot of War and Marvin Gaye, Bill Withers. Had a lot of that playing in the house. And one of my main influences, trumpet-wise, was Doc Severinsen, seeing him on the Tonight Show band, playing out in front of that group, and that was really inspired me to want to play the trumpet. That was a big part of why I wanted to play the trumpet as well. So. Let
me ask you this. What kind of hand did you have? Talk to me about La La Land. What kind of hand did you have in that film?
So basically it was really a sidelining gig, meaning that they hired, all the musicians on stage you see are really musicians. They're not actors. We're musicians first and actors second. The soundtrack was played actually by top musicians in town, colleagues I've worked with before. Wayne Bergeron on trumpet, Peter Erskine on drums, Andy Martin on trombone. What was interesting about that is the fact that the reason why it ended up being so prominent in the film, I think, and just a testament to the guys, we transcribed all of the solos and stuff that were taken on the soundtrack, and we're playing right along with them. So it's really authentically we're playing exactly what's being played on the soundtrack, which doesn't really happen too many times in movie music, because a lot of times they'll hire actors to play, a musician. So that's what made it so realistic. Kind of funny, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So you kind of touched on, you went to the University of Southern California, then you went to the New England Conservatory. What did you learn about music in a formal environment?
I mean, the reality is that you need a solid foundation, solid classical foundation to be able to just have dexterity on the instrument, to be able to perform well. What's interesting is after all that formal teaching, which, you learn a lot of the protocol of how to perform in an ensemble, how to handle preparation for stagecraft and so on and so forth. So much of what you don't learn in school, you learn by sitting next to your colleagues and luminaries and mentors that really teach you stuff that they don't teach in school, that help to prolong your career and take it to another level. Some guys that helped me with that were Byron Stripling, who is now leading the Columbus Jazz Orchestra. Snooky Young, who was lead trumpet and bassy band, Duke Ellington's band, Thad Jones, Mel Lewis. Played on Tonight Show for several years in the Tonight Show band. I had the pleasure of being able to sit next to him and learn a lot from him as lead trumpet in the Clayton Hamilton Jazz Orchestra. So that's where I got most of my teaching that got me to be able to perform on a high level as a career moving forward.
And then you were part of the Disney All-American College Band. That had to be a great experience for you as well.
Yeah, I mean, so I attended New England Conservatory while I was still, finishing up high school, and then went out to California to go to USC, where I minored in music and majored in computer engineering. While I was there, that's when I auditioned for the All-American College Band, and in 1994 I was in it playing at Disneyland. In '95 was where they had a Disney Grammy All-American College Jazz Band. Now that was an amazing experience as well, because that was at the Epcot Center in Florida, and for 14 weeks we had a different guest artist every week. So that we backed up. So we played with Arturo Sandoval that summer, Rosemary Clooney, Dianne Reeves, Eartha Kitt, Jack Jones, Joe Sample. I mean, the list went on and on of all these amazing jazz, luminaries that we got a chance to back up and spend a good deal of time asking questions about their experiences and playing their actual charts off their albums that were out at that time. So that was pretty pivotal in my development as well, really wanting to pursue being a professional trumpet player on a full-time scale.
The thing about jazz is, as we very well know, it's not an easy business to get into and make big time, make your name big. But what you've ended up doing with your career is you've worked with studios like Paramount and Warner Brothers and Disney. Does that give you kind of an extra leg up on things to get your music out to more people? Do you think that's a part of what your career fabric is?
I mean, I think the big part of that, what I always tell my students as well, is that you really have to, jazz, of course, is a big component of everything I do, and jazz as an art form has allowed me to kind of to create my own voice, and that's why people would hire me for specific things, is because I have my own voice in that arena. Of course, I do a lot of pop and Latin and all different styles, but along with my classical training and then being able to playing so much jazz over the years, you develop your own character, and that's what people hire you for in certain situations. So, for example, when I played on Secret Life of Pets soundtrack, that was it was a big band with strings. So the contractor specifically, looked for musicians that were able to have that skill set where they could kind of cross genres and still have a classical sensibility playing this jazz score. Alexander Desplat who won an Academy Award for several movie scores, the person who wrote the music for that, and he was a classically trained musician that wrote a jazz score. So it required those musicians to be able to cross genres and be able to understand the language that he was what he wanted to have played musically.
The one thing too that's great about your career, it's very diversified, is that you play with the Clayton Hamilton Jazz Orchestra. You had mentioned John DeVersa. There's a lot of groups, Gerald Wilson's Jazz Orchestra. There's a lot of people that you play with. What do you get from being in each of those outfits? How does each of those distinct jazz outfits contribute to you as a whole musician?
Well, it's very inspiring seeing each one of where I'm blessed is that I get to play in groups that really are original with their compositions, and they're completely different in terms of the way they're approached. I mean, John DeVersa's group is very contemporary, progressive. John Beasley's Monkestra, which we also got nominated for a Grammy this year in the same category, it's definitely a tribute to Monk's music, and that's another contemporary approach, completely different than John's approach to music. And then John Clayton's, is a true, comes from the roots of Basie and Thad Jones, Mel Lewis, and is truly a swing. So to see each of those band leaders and see that what they create inspires me to create music. And anytime you listen to more music, it just helps influence you and to want to create that much more. So I think that's what I take away from it, really. And then there's another artist, we're building a show called The Real La La Land, where it's going to feature members that were in the movie doing stuff from the American Songbook, original arrangements of that, and that's going to be with Dave Damiani. And we're doing a few shows in Las Vegas and Atlantic City and doing a summer residency in Atlantic City in July, so we're excited about that as well. So all those experiences just really inspire you to just keep moving and creating and putting the music out there.
And then another component of you is you've been with orchestras and symphonies, the Boston Pops, the LA Opera, San Diego Symphony. Those have to be different blends of music for you, but they have to help you grow more, don't they?
Well, I mean, growing up in Boston was truly a classical, environment that appreciates a great deal of classical music. I mean, the Boston Symphony is the most well-endowed, symphony in the world. Every chair in that orchestra is completely endowed for perpetuity. So they don't have any type of problems with salaries or anything like that. So coming from that, of course, you become seriously classically trained. You really learn your instrument. And that's why I get calls a lot of times, like when I did stuff with the Cincinnati Symphony with Seth MacFarlane or Cincinnati Pop, or, when I was on tour with Natalie Cole and we were doing symphony gigs, you have to have that, once again, that classical sensibility to be able to communicate with the people in the orchestra that are, maybe playing a style of music that they don't normally play on a regular basis. So it just helps to be able to have your foot in both worlds and understand that at the end of the day, it's still music, and it's just a matter of kind of learning a different approach and articulation and language to be able to communicate to get the best music across to the people. So.
Yeah, and speaking of approach, you're also an educator and clinician. What is your philosophy? What do you want to give to your students? The
biggest thing you can do as a musician, if you really want to do this as a career, is you can't be closed-minded to, you have to be very open-minded to all the music around you. I'm still learning things about new musicians and new music every day. I just came across this Brazilian artist, Cheyu Jorge, or so I can't even pronounce his name. I got to learn how to pronounce his name. But it's kind of this Afro-Brazilian music. The guy's been doing it for years, and it's just the most amazing hybrid of kind of R&B and Brazilian music. And so I think that's the biggest thing, is you really need to be open to listening to different styles of music, and don't pigeonhole yourself. Don't get caught into a corner. Don't even as a jazz lover, be careful not to become like the jazz police and say, "Oh, that's not jazz," because it's maybe not a bebop head, or or Charlie Parker like, or Coltrane or whatever. You have to be open to getting out of your comfort zone and learning different styles of music, and writing and performing them, and come from an artist's perspective. Even if you don't necessarily put your own group together and perform outside, you still have to have an understanding of that, so you can appreciate that even more. And I think the more people that appreciate different styles of music, the bigger audiences we're going to have. I think we've seen a surge in people wanting to see live music, see and hear live music, which is really exciting. And there are more venues opening every day for live music, and I think it's going to be an exciting time for live musicians moving forward here in the next few years.
So when you look back on your career up to this point, you've been very busy in a lot of different projects. How do you feel about your career? Do you feel it's going good?
Yeah, I feel very, very fortunate and very blessed. I mean, when you're a freelance musician, or when you're really you have to hustle all the time, pretty much. I am fortunate to have contractors and stuff that will hire me for certain projects on a regular basis, and that's great. And I'm very blessed to have built up that type of reputation to be called for those things. But I think I'm very pleased with the trajectory that my career is going, and I think that once again, adapting and taking advantage of different opportunities, this La La Land experience has allowed an opportunity to create a totally different show with more musicians and people that were involved, and create a different thing. And once again, it's just about getting the music out there to people. So yeah, it's been great, and looking forward to more things coming up, especially this new La La Land show we're putting together. So, or calling it the real La La Land. So,
right on.
It's going to be exciting. Yeah.
So you've dedicated your life to the jazz craft. So let me ask you this: why do you love jazz?
Well, I really feel it's the apex of self-expression. You can start with a foundation, play a head, and then you can improvise off that head in infinite amount of possibilities. What is better than that? I mean, and you can, the beauty of jazz is you can infuse so many other styles. Remember Hubert Laws when he had that Romeo and Juliet album, which was, he took the music of Romeo and Juliet and put it in the jazz style. I don't know if you're hip to that.
Yeah.
It was amazing. That was an influential thing for me, being classically trained at that time, and then hearing this jazz flutist playing this amazing classical repertoire in a jazz style, knowing that could be, done is amazingly inspirational. So I think that's what's great about jazz, is that the possibilities are endless and infinite in terms of how you can infuse them, how you can arrange it, how you can approach it, the instrumentation, the strings with a big band with strings. But it's just it's pretty amazing the things you can do with that. So this allows, like I said, it's really the apex of creative expression. So that's why I love it so much.
So speaking of Hubert Laws and other musicians you kind of brought up, if you could get into a time machine and go back in time and see anybody live, who would you like to go back and see and experience live?
Oh, man, that's a great question. Probably Miles Davis. I never saw him live. I've seen videos.
Yeah.
But I never went to a live concert, which, as we know, a live performance, the energy is completely different. Even if you've watched a recording of a live performance, it's still completely different being in the room while that person is playing. I think it would have been amazing to see him at work because he's definitely a pioneer in that regard, putting all those different styles of music under the jazz umbrella and just making music. Wasn't necessarily. In fact, he didn't like you to call it jazz. He was just making music, and it just happened to have some jazz influence to it. So Miles Davis would be one, but even if I were to go even further back, I would have liked to. Wow, it would have been interesting to see Louis Armstrong live, because I understand he was an amazing showman, and at the time, and he broke down racial barriers. I can't even imagine playing at that level and still having to deal with, the racial intolerance of that time. That's talk about amazing strength. And I can't even imagine that. It's just, so I would have liked to have seen him live. It would have been excellent.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So let me ask you this: is someone that's played live quite a bit and been on a lot of recordings, what's one of the nicest things that a fan has ever said to you about your work?
Wow, that it inspired them to go listen to other music. I had played with Natalie Cole and toured with her for the last 5 years before she passed away, and we would always do an encore at the end where she and I would trade fours. She was scat, and it was a pretty amazing experience.
Yeah.
And to have audience member come up to me and say, this makes me want to go listen to even more trumpet. They were like, I've never heard this music before tonight, and now I want to go hear some more. So that's exciting, because that's what it's about,
Yeah, absolutely.
Other than other former instrumentalists would come up to me and say, you made me want to go pick up and play my instrument again, whether it's trumpet or saxophone. You just look like you're having such a great time up there. I want to play. I want to get back to that joy that I don't have anymore as an accountant or as whatever. So yeah, that's always good to hear from an audience member after a show. Mm-hmm.
And you're riding a pretty big wave right now, especially with such a critically acclaimed film and all of these jazz outfits you're in. So if we talk 10 years from now and I ask you what's going on, where do you want to see your career go? What do you want to see transpire, say, in 10 to 20 years from now?
Well, I look forward to putting more of my own music out there. I do have a few groups, the Latin Jazz Syndicate and a couple other groups, the Wow Factor that I put together, where showcasing some of my own things. But I'm looking forward to recording a big band album this year with my big band, the Synergy Jazz Orchestra, and just more of my own material, stuff that I've written that I haven't recorded yet, and so I'm hoping that 10 years from now, maybe you'll hear a few Grammy-nominated albums of my of my groups, or maybe I will have even won a Grammy. Not that that's a validation of my music, but it would be nice to be recognized in that regard, and just strive to put the best music out there that I can. That is my own music, that is my own art. So it's great to be a sideman on these things and contribute to these award-winning, acclaimed situations, but it would be nice to, I'm looking forward to putting my own music out there and sharing it with everybody.
So let me ask you this. This is my final question. It's all going to come down to this, and everyone has a interpretation or a version of who you are, your family, your friends, business associates, the fans, and the crowd. But when you wake up and you face the world, who do you think you are?
I think I'm a person that is real positive about what he likes to do. I truly enjoy playing and teaching and sharing music with people. I think as an artist, too many times, especially in this country, it's not thought of as a viable career choice. When I go to Europe and other countries, we're treated, art is definitely much more appreciated. I really feel as though I'm fortunate and blessed to be able to do this as a career and share this. And, you know, even if you don't become a professional musician, I always tell my students, it's the fact that you want to appreciate the art. And the more people that appreciate the art, the bigger audiences we're going to have, the more tolerance we're going to have for different things. I think it encompasses a lot more than people realize. We can all come together. You can have different races and creeds and religions come together to see a same concert of one musician. You know, I can't imagine. Doesn't matter if you go to a Michael Jackson concert. Didn't matter whether you were black, brown, green, purple, Muslim, Hindu, Buddhist, Christian. Everyone came together because of the music. Yeah. So I really feel kind of like an ambassador of the music, and it's important for me as a professional musician to have a positive attitude, share the positive things about being a professional musician. Yeah, of course, it could be hard work. Everything requires hard work at some point. To be able to play music for a living, I really don't have much to complain about. And so I like to be able to use that as a platform to kind of educate people about and appreciate music as an art form, music as a career.
That's a great way to wrap everything up. Bijon, thank you for taking some time out today and giving me your story, and thank you for the music. I appreciate it.
Hey, thank you, man.
Thanks for listening and tuning in to yet another Neon Jazz interview, where we give you a bit of insight into the finest players in New York, Kansas City, LA, and spots all over the world, giving fans all that jazz. And thanks to Bijon for his time and all the stories and all that music. If you want to hear more interviews, go to Famous Interviews with Joe Domino on the iTunes Store. Visit Neon Jazz at youtube.com, and for all things Neon Jazz, go to the neonjazz.blogspot.com. Until next time, enjoy the jazz, my friends.
Neon Jazz.